Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace. This week's show is on truth, and we have an amazing panel to discuss it. I never shy away from tough subjects, and this is no exception. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, register with StreamYard so we can see your name when you comment or have a question. Please keep all comments and questions related to the show topic. And remember, this is a safe space. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Amanda, Kirsten, Michelle, and Tim and Heidi. I could not do this without you. I appreciate your support more than you even realize. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting it. I've started a Patreon under Fireside Creators, and there we go. Trying to get all coordinated here. As well as you can go to my website, sherrypalace.com, and use the support tab. There's several different levels of options. I also have a cafe press under Sherry Palace. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can support me. But most importantly, thank you in advance for being here. And thank you for supporting my work, because you just being here makes the show go on. Okay, let's meet our panel. First, we have Mal. Mal works in the software industry and attends All Saints Episcopal Church in Pasadena. He is a postulant in the Diocese of Los Angeles and a seminarian at Bexley Seabury Seminary. Mel leads Taizé worship, volunteers at several laundry, love, and homeless ministries, and serves in multiple pastoral care ministries. He has walked the Camino, I can't talk again, Camino de Santiago pilgrimage in Spain 5 times. Welcome, Mel. I'm so glad you're here. Next, we have Marty. Marty is a military brat, reader, Christian, but not a fundy or conservative, and has been a professional musician and an analytical chemist for the last 20 years. Since he was a kid, his hobbies included following politics. His passion started at the age of 12 with the Vietnam anti-war movement in 1967. Marty also loves history, philosophy, orchid horticulture, quality fiction, and is a movie enthusiast. Welcome, Marty. So glad you're here. And last but definitely not least, we have Anna back. Anna Garcia Lucas was born and raised in New Mexico. She is a mother, wife, veteran, and a survivor. Anna earned her MDiv at Episcopal Divinity School in Bexley, Seabury. She is currently pursuing a master's in pastoral counseling and chaplaincy at Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary. She's a Reformed Roman Catholic, spiritual mystic, probably a heretic, and a lover of coffee, music, green chili, and good vibes. Welcome back, Anna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, like I said, we don't shy away. Hi, Michelle. Welcome, and thanks for watching. We don't shy away from tough topics here, and this one is absolutely no different. And I was trying to figure out what exactly truth was in looking at all this. And I kept going big, like, okay, what are the universal truths? And started with gravity and was like, nope, that's not it. Things are born to females. Nope, that's not it. There's always an exception to every rule. And with truth, since it's so subjective, it's really hard to define. And I think that's probably the message that we get universally. One person's truth is not someone else's. We have relative truth. Like, for instance, my height. Right now, I am almost 6 feet tall, but I wasn't always that way. We have personal truths that are beliefs, but beliefs aren't truth. They change. When I was a child, I believed foolish things. And then we have feelings that can be truths, but those aren't facts either. Although it could be truth as to why we were feeling those things. So there's so many different aspects of truth and how we personalize this. Mel, tell me, how do you see truth? Mel, are you muted? He hears no sound. Anna, let's start with you.
So, truth, like you said, I have found that it changes. I used to think the truth was again, like you said, it's facts. And I grew older. The facts that I had and held often didn't seem to be the same facts that other people have. For example, the big issue today, truth and reconciliation, the truth of the history of the United States, how it came to be. Well, depending on which lens you look through, that truth can change. What is true for one group of people may not be true for another group of people. A couple years ago, Rudy Giuliani, right? The truth isn't the truth. And quite honestly, I laughed. That made no sense. And at the same time, is the truth the truth? What is the truth? My personal truth changes from 1 minute to the next.
Yeah.
I like to think of myself as a truthful person. And if I were being truthful, am I giving the whole truth, or am I covering it a little so as to not hurt people's feelings? Am I taking into consideration the comfort of others when I tell the truth? Or do I flat out tell it and punch people in the gut with whatever it is I say? So maybe Rudy Giuliani was right. I can't believe I'm saying that the truth.
Hey, heretic, don't ever say that on the show.
The truth isn't the truth. And I want to go to Marty on this because he's the scientist, right? He's the analyst. And ask him, if I were to come to you and ask, what is your truth? What angle would you come at that from?
Wow.
I know, right? Nothing like punching you right in the gut with that.
Well, no. Actually, it leads right into what I was thinking when I was thinking about this earlier today, and that is what we call truth. More often is just honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Truth
but
is
your
so
honesty,
difficult.
right? Not necessarily everybody's.
Okay, to say that something is my truth is to be honest about how I feel about something at that moment.
That makes sense.
A lot of what we call truth is based in social mores. A lot of what we call truth, in the science community, we don't even deal with truth. We deal with data and creating mathematical models that reflect how that data occurs. And when we get new data, we just change the mathematical model, or we rebuild it from scratch. We do what we have to do. So from a scientific viewpoint, truth doesn't matter. Truth is not what we're going after. We're going after facts. And facts only tell you what happened, not why.
So let me stop you there. So you're saying there is a delineation between truth and facts?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
Ooh.
Okay, facts have no nuance.
Okay. I like that.
Facts simply are. They're data points is all they are. And from that we try to extrapolate the truth. Or we try and extrapolate something that makes sense to us.
Ooh.
But we're also limited there because we're limited to our own experiences. There's a kind of a joke that goes around about politicians and why they really don't get what other people go through, and that's really the truth. To me, it seems that most of them are born rich. They've never had to struggle. They don't know what it is to They don't know what it is to have to worry about the rent next. or or get formula for the baby. And so when they approach problems, they're working strictly from an experiential point that they see as the truth. And anything that occurs outside of that experience, their experience, is not truth. It's just it can be anything to them. To some people, it's like, well, you're just making that up. To other people, it could be anything, but it's not as real as if they've gone through it themselves or gone through it with somebody else.
And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then if you went through something and I went through something at the same exact time, at the same exact place, the truth of what you went through will not be the truth of what I went through.
Exactly.
So is that the truth, or is that relative truth?
It's relative truth. It's experiential. And it's also limited by the fact that we are. There's a question that's asked in early science classes. It goes simply this: is the universe the way it seems because of it? That's the way of the universe, or is it the way it seems because that's the only way we're able to view it?
Ooh, yes.
I thought about that in trying to find the truth, because I was like, okay, I can say the truth is my height, but that's not a constant truth. I have blue eyes. No, we only see that I have blue eyes. My eyes are actually clear, is what science tells me. So, I mean, even our perceptions, which is actually Facebook user said that it is, perceptions and perspectives and all of these things are different reality. When I started writing my book and deconstructing, I looked for natural law, and that it had to be true in all aspects, in all times, in all places, with all people. And that kind of eliminated a lot of religion, because they only have the single way. What was true before Jesus would not have necessarily been true afterwards. But there are so many nuances in between those, we all look for love. That's mostly true unless there's some type of mental illness or something like that. But so we can say that there are things that are true throughout history, but again, those things still change. Where do we find those beliefs? Where do we find those facts, especially with religion? Because when people start deconstructing, they go, okay, there's almost none here. Welcome back, Mel. I'm glad you got your sound back.
Thank you. I was just sort of wondering why you all were so quiet.
So how do you decipher truth, Mel?
In an instantaneous situation, or in a big picture?
However you want to begin.
At any given moment, I look at truth with the little t that we were just talking about here with Marty, and that is recognizing that we are limited by how our brains are constructed. Our retinas can only see so many colors of the spectrum, and so on and so forth. We can only design instruments that will be where we could record information that we perceive. I mean, so even our experiments and our instruments are limited by our biology. So there's always that aspect of things, but for me, I may have started my life with a more scientific sort of background, but I think I'm a little more interested nowadays in what truth means to people, the capital T truth means to people, and how it guides them, how it shapes their lives. Because clearly we can see that people have a need for truth. People have a need for truth so that they can understand how to process their lives and how to move forward. We're confused when our brains are telling us that our senses and our understandings of things are what we recognize as truth don't match what we think is supposed to be true. And that sort of cognitive dissonance just drives us crazy.
We see that everywhere now.
Yeah. So how do we process that when we want it so badly? When we want something so badly that we're willing to risk relationships, to risk jobs, and things like that, in order to find truth.
Go ahead, Anna.
So I have a question, and I always go back to that famous "A Few Good Men," that line, that "you can't handle the truth," that crazy thing. And I feel that, can we? Is there a truth we can truly handle? Is there something that the naked, the harsh, the bright truth, or do we each kind of put a nice Photoshop filter over it because of what you said, Mel, because of what we can absorb, what we can accept? And then does it become a sense of, do we want to know the absolute truth? If there's any such thing as absolute truth, do we want to know the absolute truth? Do I absolutely want to know if my spouse loves me? Or is it more acceptable to me? He's not listening to this. Is it more acceptable and easy for me to absorb, he loves me? Because that's what my sanity can accept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean that truth might be valid on one day and not necessarily the other, just like with you.
Yes.
There's been, over the last 5 years, especially with the politics and everything going on, there's been a lot of what is truth. Alternate facts came out and all of that. Yes. And it was like, okay, so who do we believe? And I kind of took the avenue of, I'm still going to, believe what I believe, but the proof is in the pudding. So in a couple years, when all of this stuff works out, we'll be able to see. We'll be able to see from indictments. We'll be able to see from the legal aspects of it. But even then, people are claiming that that's tainted. So that's when the cognitive dissonance kicks in. That's when you go, okay, where do my beliefs lie? Where do they go? And when you bring everyday problems into it, or looking at it as an every 5-minute thing, I think it's harder to see what type of truth is. Because if you go to one station, the truth is once, and the other station is a completely different truth. It's maddening.
Perhaps that's because neither one are telling the truth.
Oh.
I think.
Bam! Mic drop, Mr. Musician.
It comes down to what we've got. What we've got is, and I talk about this all the time. Anna's heard me seen me write about it, but we basically have propaganda outlets.
Yeah.
That pass themselves off as news, each preaching to its own separate choir, each seeking to separate us into warring camps. And I believe that it's intended to do that because there is a desire to keep us occupied and focused on other things than what is actually going on. That's why I've always said that if you really want to know what's going on, you damn well better read.
Yeah.
And you better read history. But that's...
Well, and, history being his story is always, not always, is usually from the victor and not the loser. So even that, our history is subjective, like CRT is really big right now, and people are going, no, don't absolutely teach it. And then the other side is saying, but this is our history. You guys won. That's the reason you don't know this. We technically, people of color, the marginalized, stay so because of the tainted history. I just did an article on child sacrifice and about how there's been lies for 3,000 years about satanic child sacrifice that has promulgated all kinds of misery across the world. And that was so many people's truth for so long, and it turned out to be racist and, you know, hitting the people who were in power the most. So, you know, so I am constantly going, is this true? Is this true? But how do we even examine that to the point that need be?
Well, and I don't know if we truly can. And I say that from the perspective of being deployed to a combat zone and seeing and hearing things in one realm, seeing how they turned out, and then seeing how they are written about and reported in completely different aspects from each other. And a lot of it came down to kind of like what Marty was saying. It is propaganda. So is what I saw and what I heard the truth? And that goes back to angry man, you can't handle the truth, because no, there is absolutely nobody that could have handled that truth. In fact, that's why a lot of us came out with PTSD. Do we want to know the truth? And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Sherry, with the truth and reconciliation, with the truth about the history from the perspective of enslaved people and indigenous persons and everybody else whose story isn't told in American history books. Is that something we are ready for? And then, does it even matter if we're ready for it or not? Should it be the kind of thing that just comes at you and you absorb and then process through it? A lot like deconstructing.
I've asked questions and their response has been, do you want to know the truth? And I can't think of a single time where I said yes. when they get, you know, preface it with that, no, I'm good. Let me go off it, you know, and do it this way, because it's like, if you're going to say it that way, there's something to be feared, I think.
Well, there's a quote, and I believe it was from the movie The Margin Call, that I absolutely loved, that says, the truth is like poetry. People hate poetry.
But do they?
Yeah.
I think that speaks to who we are. Let's. I mean, if we were even to be honest about ourselves, do you really want to know what motivates you, or do you like some of the things that comfort you that you say are motivating you?
Expand on that.
I think everybody looks out for their own best interest first, as a rule. Not always. But as a rule, everybody looks out for themselves first, second, third. They look for convenient ways to rationalize what is in their best interest. And I think we bury that under a blanket of good intentions. And we don't peek underneath that blanket because we don't want to know what's in there.
Well, and that's why I designed the art for the show accordingly, because if there was a thin white line in the middle of the word truth and all different shadows going out from it, because, you know, growing up, it was always, it's your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth, and that's somewhere in the middle. But there really is that, you know, where do we want to believe? Where do we want to go? It's kind of a hairy situation, especially in today's days. Mel, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of spinning a little bit on the poetry thing, because one of the things that has always struck me about what is true, what holds true, is that it is such an experiential thing. Something might be, well, I think it goes back to what is the difference between truth and facts. How's that? Okay, because we brought up facts, and to so many people, they think, well, facts are truth are facts. There's an equal sign. That means we're done, and there's nothing else to discuss. But I don't think of them as the same thing myself. I think they're similar. But facts might be needed to sort of guide our truth, but I don't think necessarily that they speak truth to us. I've said this in Bible classes before. It's like, you know what? The scriptures are supposed to be true to us. But, you know, I go through some of the books like Harry Potter series and go, man, that's true. That's true. That tells a story of people that just carries it all. And the Lord of the Rings, same thing. It's like, wow, this tells the story of a people. And I get it, and I understand how that relates to me and the people in my life. So if those are true to me in my context, then why are they any less truthful just because they're pure fiction? There's no facts in them that are actually true in terms of facts. So what is the difference then with truth versus facts in that situation? So starting at that basis, you get into all sorts of other discussions. But to me, I still haven't come to a conclusion as to when do you know that truth must go beyond the facts on the page.
So is truth only something you can see in hindsight, or is it a moving target, or is it anything that you can pin down, supposing that you want to pin it down? And I actually, Marty, I was thinking about Facebook, and Mel, I was thinking about things that we experienced when we were together in person. Did I come off as my true and authentic self at that moment, in that period, in that time? Maybe so, and maybe not, because, like I think Marty, you said, I wanted people to have a favorable outlook on me. So did I appear in a truthful manner, or did I appear in a manner like Harry Potter looking in the mirror, right? Did I see what I wanted to see and wanted to portray to everybody else? And then did they even see that? Or was I fooling myself in what I was portraying?
Yeah, when I think of my personal truths, I have a lot of regrets any time that I abandon those in the attempts to please someone else. I mean, I remember someone saying something, and because they said that, I overemphasized. They're like, oh, well, you do this. And I'm like, oh, yes, I do that. Something to that effect. And then I walked away from it going, I was acting upon their words, not who I am. And it's really easy to lose that self-truth with peer pressure and because of the changing times and stuff like that. So even setting up our own personal truths as to who we are and our authenticity can sometimes be flowing. I know my beliefs are completely different than they were 20 years ago. So, beliefs in general, I think we get into bad situations when they're called facts or truth.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I don't think you need to necessarily wait 20 years. Just taking a really good course on something, or having some deep experiences with an individual can just open your eyes to things that you didn't realize were covered with tinted lenses of some sort. I'm an immigrant. I came here from the Philippines, and my whole concept growing up for most of my life in the U.S. was in a certain way about my experiences in the Philippines and the U.S. as a colonial power there for so many years. And, I only lived there 5 years. It wasn't until I got fully deep in some conversations with indigenous people from the Philippines in the north that I realized how much my own perceptions were Spanish colonial interpretations, because I didn't come from that area. I don't have as much of that indigenous background in my history, and it blew my mind. My whole world was turned upside down in terms of what truth meant regarding my people and the culture and all that. So in just a few short hours, everything changed regarding what I thought and perceived regarding my own history. And I thought that was fixed because it's history.
I try to learn something new every day. And there's sometimes it's mind blowing, like, I didn't know that, but most of the time it is growth. So you're right. I mean, it can change, beliefs can change in a matter of seconds. Marty, what do you have to say about all this?
Well, okay, going back to what Mel said about art and Harry Potter. Well, that's it. One of the things I wanted to, nice segue. What you said about good writing, I've always believed that there's more truth in good fiction, which is why I say that I'm kind of a fiction buff. A good movie, there's more truth in art quite often than you'll ever find in the newspapers.
Yeah.
And Anna, what you'd said about how we portray ourselves, the personality we project on Facebook, which we like to think is, this is us. And the one thing that I'm always remember is the Latin word, that the base word for personality is persona, which is the Latin word for mask. And I forget who I was talking to the other day that I heard that, or I might have been watching a video, but I thought when that's exactly my reaction. When I first heard that, I went, oh, yeah, because it does make sense, because it's the way we portray it. Again, experiential, but it's the way we portray ourselves is the way we think we are and want the world to see us. And I don't think that's truth. I think it's anything but. But it's comfortable. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with it.
Is that kind of like ignorance is bliss, though?
So what?
Is that kind of like ignorance is bliss?
Yeah, I wouldn't know about that. No, I'm only kidding. Yes, it's exactly the point. It's, it comes back to what I said about rationalization. I feel like as humans, we have an almost infinite ability to rationalize. And that's where a lot of this cognitive dissonance comes from. And speaking of scientific truth, which I was talking, which of course doesn't really exist, but people think it does, and that leads to why there's so much distrust right now of climate change, of new technology, we're virtually, we've got all this really cool technology, but at heart we're still kind of clannish, and we just stepped out of the cave, and it's and they put together this vaccine in what 18 months that really they've been working on for over 20 years. And it's scientific literacy is kind of a trouble spot for a lot of people, and that's normal, and I don't have a problem with that. I just wish they wouldn't fight me on it sometimes when I'm trying to explain things to them. This whole thing with COVID it's been real. It's been, there's a lot of truth has come out during it about how people feel and how it affects lives. But it's also exposed an underbelly that leans towards rejection of the new. Nobody's ever seen science work in real time before until now.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
And
and it was a rude awakening for a lot of people because they bought into it for a short amount of time. Then, as soon as they heard that, well, no, you don't have to wash your hands that often, they were like, they don't know what they're talking about, which is true. As a scientist, we don't know what we're doing half the time. We're figuring it out as we go.
I
And
was just going to say that science changes because with each new iteration of COVID, for example, every time somebody sneezes, well, you've got different cooties in the mix at this point, and so that changes. Get enough people sneezing, you have an untold amount of different cooties, and therefore you have to go back to the drawing board and try something new and try something new and try something new. So it's not like truth. It's not something that you can nail down, because the minute somebody else impacts that, the minute another pebble is dropped into that pond, the ripples change everything again, and will continue to do so from that point on. The one thing that I have seen is when the truth hits home. And I'm going to use my brother-in-law as an example. As he lay dying, just being ripped apart by COVID and the everything that comes with that. He was anti-vax, anti-mask, and so we're a close circle around him until they were face to face with a person completely hooked up and intubated and not moving and organs shutting down, and then the truth hit. You know what I mean?
Such a shame.
Then the whole idea of you can't handle the truth, the idea of being so vulnerable, and maybe that's why we have masks, to hide that vulnerability of not being indestructible, of not being a part of something good, of not being that we can be changed just like that, even though this little foursome here has changed us all already. The impact we have on each other has changed us all already. I will never look at science the same again because of you, Marty. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it in a way of you have charged that little electrical thing. You've made a new pathway up here in the gray matter, and now that's starting to build its little bridges. Mel, I never knew that about you. And now I am going through and reworking everything I know about my own history and indigenous roots, and thinking, I need to ask him about this, and I never asked, and why didn't I? I am already impacted by what you said. And Sherry, you're 6 feet, depending on where you measure, right? Are you in heels? Is your hair poofy? Is it flat? Are you measuring from here, from here?
It is flat head,
right?
No shoes.
Is 6 feet really 6 feet, or do you delineate where you start measuring?
Yeah.
And it becomes overwhelming to, oh my God, maybe I don't want to know the truth, because it could end up with somebody I love lying in a hospital bed and shutting completely down because of not trusting the truth.
Well, I think our biggest problem in societies right now is that the ignorant think that they are in the sole possession of the truth. You know, the difference in the four of us and the masses is that I get this feeling that we're all open. I do not claim in any way, shape, or form to know the truth, know it all. I am completely okay with not knowing and saying so. A lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people say that they only have the truth, that, truth, the way, and the light. They know the facts, scientists don't. All of those things are,
Mm-hmm.
it's ego. It's ego driven. It's not intelligent driven. It's pure ego.
Well, and that's the problem of the pride there in thinking that you can actually own exclusively or know exclusively the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Truth, it cannot be contained. Truth just is. So you either are aware of it and are familiar with something that speaks truth to you, and that could be shared with others, or it's just you yourself. And I think for our folly, we sit there and we think that, oh yeah, I know this, you don't. And all of us in both sides of this tragic situation in our country, all of us are guilty of that, and that helps. That doesn't help the situation, because we find antagonism when we should be finding common ground and trying to defeat this stupid thing.
Yeah.
And so it creates a lamentable situation, not just a difference of opinion.
I say almost every day, COVID does not give a fuck what you think.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. If you believe in it or not, it doesn't care. And same goes with science, right, Marty? They don't care if you believe it. It's just the way it is.
It's, well, until it changes. I think what we're seeing, and I kind of spoke on this before when Q was huge. We're looking at Gnosticism. People love Gnosticism. Everybody likes to believe that they know things that the other people don't. It's a way of feeling smart. It's a way of puffing yourself up, and and people like that. They lean into it. So if somebody comes along and says, well, I've got some information that nobody else knows that I'll share with you because you're my kind of people, you're going to find people following that guy. People are intensely dualistic for the most part. It's either good or it's bad. It's evil or it's, holy, or it's
miss all
right
the
or
gray
it's
areas
left,
of life.
it's conservative or it's liberal. They're afraid to have an actual dialogue because it's easier to dismiss somebody if there's no real communication going on.
And I find that I'm just so troubled by that, because I prefer more of the concept of like Sophia, that there's this great grand wisdom out there that we all can benefit from. It's not just for some select Gnostics, or modern day Gnostics for that matter. It's just this is our inheritance. This is what we get to enjoy, the wisdom of Sophia, and there's no need to be partial with each other about it.
Yeah, but if you think you already know anything, then there's no reason to tap into that wisdom, right? And that goes back to the ego. So many people, don't want to learn. I can't handle the truth. Back to what you were saying, Anna. They refuse to learn. They refuse to listen. They take things in little parcels and then claim the ultimate knowledge, and then there's no reason to grow.
And Sherry, you said something that kind of connects with this, that I think makes a huge difference in our ability to be humble, and that is, are we approaching life with this sort of posture that we know everything, or are we approaching it with a curiosity? What do we have to learn from this situation, from today, that I didn't know yesterday? I think too many of us, myself included, oftentimes I sit there and go, oop, I should have asked these questions. If only I'd asked these questions, I'd be better off right now, you know? And it's too easy to just be overly confident.
Is it too easy, or is it a fear of being thought less than because you don't know whatever the truth is? Is it, and what you said something there, the ability to go out in wonder, to be open to learning, to have that curiosity, to go out as a child, right? And be, and absorb everything coming into you. At what point did we become afraid of learning so many different truths? And what you just told me made me think of all the times that I tell my kids, no, we're not going to talk about that right now. And am I doing that because I don't have the time, or I don't know exactly how to answer, or the questions are so big that they're scary and I don't want to answer? And those are only just a few. So is the truth scary for us, the truth that we don't know the truth and have to rely on something else like each other or faith or fill in the blank, ... I forgot where I was going with that.
This is kind of making me think that, which I never ever expected this show to go this way, but it kind of makes me feel like the truth is the scariest thing out there. You know, with especially like growing up, my mom denied so many things. She would proclaim, "I'm the queen of denial, and that's not the river." It was her saying. And she denied it because she couldn't deal with it. There's been times in my life that I've turned a blind eye because I couldn't deal with it. You know, there are so many things that go, no, it's too much. And that stops that truth. That stops that growing. And it's also stops the other person's too, I think, also. Yeah. Marty, talk to me.
Well, actually, I agree. To me, I think that we have to be open to the truth in order to know the truth or about ourselves and our surroundings and dealing with other people is not always so much fun.
You can hear him, I can tell.
Yeah, well, no, you don't know the day I had. Today was not one of the fun days. Yeah. But people do what they can. It's just that we only have so much. I'm not quite sure how to say this. There's only so much we can take, and when we hit our limit, there's a reason to shut off the external things, to kick the defense mechanism into gear and say, there's a wall there now, and I'm standing on this side of it, and that other thing that I can't deal with at this time is on the other side, and it'll stay there. And then there's a time to tear down the wall. Ecclesiastes.
Marty, one of the things about that actually gives me hope is I think about differences in how different cultures do handle these things, these sort of differences. When I go visit my husband's family, if I bring up anything remotely like sensitive, it's like, oh no, don't, we don't talk about that, you know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, at my house, we're going to talk about it until there's tears, and then it's like, and then the laughter. You sort of deal with it. And it's just such a different experience for me in how we handle these sort of truthful situations. How do you get to truthful discussions if you're unwilling to have a discussion because there's this wall there? And it's a cultural thing, perhaps, because I never grew up like that. You know, I grew up, well, you talk about it, even if it hurts.
Oh, America was founded on that.
Vulnerability. so that's what it is. Well, that's not what it is. That's part of it. The ability to be comfortable with being vulnerable, to being possibly hurt or taken advantage of or let down or killed. I remember I was in high school and I was in ROTC and I had Captain J.J. Herrick. He was our whatever naval science teacher. And I thought he was crazy. That was the joke. He's crazy. The Vietnam War messed him up. It wasn't until a couple of decades later, after he died, we found that he did an interview. He was the commander. He was the captain on a ship in one of the bays. And the incident that happened to him started the Vietnam War.
Gulf of Tonkin.
Except it didn't, yes, the Gulf of Tonkin, except it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen. It was a bunch of shimmery fish. It wasn't a torpedo. And when he went back to report, no, we weren't attacked. They wouldn't say it because we can't. And when I found that out, that was like, wait a minute. That's our government. Wait a minute. And everything that every adult had ever told me now came into question. It came into, what the hell? What the fuck have I been learning then? Because that's not the way that I was taught. So, is it the aspect of being vulnerable to say, hey, we got that wrong. Our bad. Shouldn't have gone to war. This is what happened. Is it that? Is it the fear of not being right, good, great, handsome, effective, fill in the blank? Is it the fear of being vulnerable, that we can't handle the truth?
I think knowledge is power. I think shining light on things brings knowledge and power. I'm again, a lot of people wouldn't even tackle these topics, and I'm doing them for shows. So I know that I'm different in wanting those types of things. But again, it has to be fear. That is. There's been times where someone has corrected me and my throat has gone into my stomach and I've broken up into a sweat because now it's on Facebook and everybody knows that I was wrong. And I'm okay with that. But the humiliation makes me panic. So, if there's that type of thing. So I can definitely see that cognitive dissonance. But I think, and I know people who say, I don't want to know anything because that will mess up my head. I think it all comes down to grace, maybe.
I think that's what makes this so puzzling, because if people are afraid of truth, people are afraid of what it can do to us and how it can mess us up. I mean, how does that match up against the concept of speaking truth to power?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How truth can be a force of good, a force of that will benefit everyone. It doesn't have to be something that tears us down. If anything, the people who could be afraid of truth are those who are protecting themselves and hiding behind lies. So,
or ignorance.
What was Vietnam all about and things like that. I mean, we have the civil rights movement. I mean, I think that's where the phrase came from, right? So you have a situation where where truth does not have to be something we fear, just like anything that has a powerful force, even though intrinsically truth might not have a force. It can be used as a force of good, rather than a force that divides and a force to hide behind.
So why are we afraid of the truth?
Because we don't know the truth.
It's because it's unknown. Is that it?
It can be painful to strip away all of our defense mechanisms. Well, it is. I won't say it can be. It is painful to strip away all of our defense mechanisms and be totally and brutally honest with ourselves and allow ourselves to be vulnerable to others in creating a dialogue that exposes that truth. I don't know what else to say beyond that.
In you saying that, Marty, are you equating truth with honesty at that point?
I think truth and honesty go hand in hand. One's useless without the other.
Mm.
And can you have truth without love?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Yeah,
I'll have to ruminate on that one for a second, because my initial response is yes, but I don't like that answer.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Marty. I mean, I'm thinking about times where the truth could be painful and you might want to avoid those types of things. But in my personal experience, I've done it anyway. Even though it's been hard, I refuse to lie, and to be honest and do those types of things. But I've also been told that a lie is sweeter than truth. So sometimes hurting someone with the truth seems unloving.
Well, it depends on the truth. It's like, okay, here's one that was run by me. This is something that actually happened. It didn't happen to me, not my friend. This was a story that was related to me, and a friend asked directly, how should this have been handled? A guy is at work, working late. His boss gives him a drink. Ends up being a couple of drinks. There's also a female there. The female comes on to him. They have sex. The guy's been married for years and has a family.
Oh.
He feels terribly guilty. He goes and confesses to his wife, who promptly throws him out, and his kids hate him. Should he have told his wife? And my friend, she said, well, of course he should have. I said, there are times when the truth is not your friend. And he hurt the people he loved the most by us trying to assuage his own guilt in hopes of forgiveness that he did not receive. Was it worth it? And he's miserable now. He doesn't have a family. His kids hate him, and it's cost him a lot. I don't think the truth is always the greatest thing in the world. I think that it can harm people terribly. And that's why I stopped and said, when you ask, can there be truth in love without love? My answer is, it's going to have to be, yes, there can. But truth without love creates more problems than it solves. He was looking to unburden himself.
Which was selfish.
Which is
selfish. The whole act was selfish.
The whole act was selfish. Confessing it did nobody any good whatsoever. And I'm not supporting what he did, nor am I saying that people should go out and lie to their spouses. I'm saying there's a level of screw up which is not the way I would usually put it, that you just don't share with other people if it will cause harm. And you've got to first stop and say, who is helped by what I am doing by telling this?
That's a common story in every hair salon I've ever been in. Is everybody asking that? Well, we are at the top of the hour. I cannot even believe it went so quickly. Final words, and where can they reach you, Marty?
I'm on Facebook and rarely on Twitter. Just look for Marty Faulkner on Facebook, and you'll see a rainbow footprint with a tar on the bottom, because I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I still work within the system, but not there.
Okay.
And that's me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and you had some wonderful wisdom.
Well,
Mel, any final words, and where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Camino Pasadena, and on Facebook, Mel Soriano. And probably hiking somewhere. That's more likely than not where people tend to find me.
Back trail somewhere. I love it.
I really want to thank you for inviting me to this because this is a wonderful conversation. Truth means so much to us because to me it gives us a foundation. And we need that foundation if we're going to make our journey through life, make our spiritual journey to wherever we're going. So, whatever truth means to you ultimately, just pray that everyone here and on your journeys and our journeys, that we're always firmly rooted on whatever that foundation might be. And maybe that foundation is partly in truth.
I like that. Anna?
The truth is out there. And you can't hide from the truth. Eventually, it catches up with you all the time. Better to stop and face it than to try to run from it. And Marty and Mel, I am so glad that you came on. This has been so much fun. Yeah. Thank you. I love you for being here. Thank you.
And I want to point out before I send you guys backstage, but this panel is compliments of Anna. She helped me put this together, and my favorite co-host. So thank you so much. Thank you all. And I will see you guys backstage. Another great show. What is your personal truth? Message me, put it in the comments. Tell me what you got out of the show. Next week's show is on life hacks from life coaches. So it's going to be another good one with some awesome information to keep us all going. I want to, again, thank the panel. They were absolutely phenomenal and in sharing and their vulnerability and their openness. Have a wonderful week. I will see you next Tuesday for our chat then, and be sure to walk in peace. Bye-bye.